Well, here we are. The clock's ticking, the pressure's mounting, and Celtic find themselves with just over 24 hours to submit their squad for the UEFA Champions League playoff. By the time you're watching this, the deadline will be looming large. And yet, we're still waiting. No big new arrivals, no reinforcements charging through the doors at Lennoxtown. Just the same squad, the same issues, and the same questions hanging in the air. It's crunch time, and Celtic are standing still. Now, I know some of you watching this are feeling the nerves kick in. I get it. You're looking at the calendar, then you're looking at the team sheet, and you're thinking, this is it? And it's hard not to feel that way. We know who we're playing. Kayat Almaty. We know when. We know what's at stake. But the reality is, it doesn't feel like Celtic are any closer to being truly ready for the fight ahead. And with a trip that far east, and the Rangers game right after, it's fair to ask, what's the plan? Let's talk about the draw first. Kayat Almaty from Kazakhstan are our opponents in this final playoff round. A club that's clawed their way through every round of qualifying to get here. Fair play to them, by the way. They edged Slovan Bratislava on penalties, and now they face the biggest challenge of their campaign. But let's be clear, this is a tie Celtic should win. Not could, should. This isn't about arrogance, it's about standards. Celtic Football Club, as a seeded side with the resources we have, the stature, the history, we're expected to get through this. Anything less would be a catastrophe. The first leg is set for Wednesday, the 20th of August, under the lights at Celtic Park. A big European night, as it should be. But it's the second leg that really turns heads. A 7,000-mile journey across continents to the far edges of Kazakhstan, to the central stadium in Almaty. It's basically closer to Tokyo than it is to Glasgow. And that kickoff? 5:45 p.m. our time. Nearly 10 at night over there. Madness. A brutal trip. And all of it comes just before we're due to take on Rangers away in the derby at the end of the month. A massive, exhausting week in the making. You'd think the board would have taken that into account when planning the summer. But here we are. Look, let me just say this. The concern that's bubbling up among supporters, it's justified. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Celtic have gambled here. There's no other way to put it. Champions League qualification was always going to be tough, but what's made it harder is our complete lack of urgency in the transfer market. We haven't brought in the bodies we needed, especially up front. And now we're heading into a massive European doubleheader with a squad that feels half-baked. That's the reality. And don't get me wrong, I'm not panicking. I still believe Celtic will go through. We should go through. This was, on paper, the easiest draw we could have hoped for. Either Slovan or Kayat Almaty were the least dangerous options in this round. But just because it's the easiest tie doesn't mean it's a guarantee. We've seen what can happen in these fixtures. We've been stung before. Remember Shakhtar Karagandhi. Remember Astana. Both times we made it harder than it should have been. Both times we let the travel, the pressure, and the complacency creep in. And let's not pretend this squad is invincible. We got vulnerabilities now. If we were better prepared, if we'd done our business earlier in the window, this whole conversation would feel different. Imagine going into this tie with a fresh striker up top. Another winger to stretch the game, a midfielder with a bit of European experience under his belt. Instead, we're left hoping the players we do have can just grit it out. And that's not the position you want to be in when Champions League money is on the line. The board will spin it any way they want, but the fact remains, this squad right now is undercooked. And yet for all that, I still back us to win it. That's the thing, not out of blind faith, out of belief in the quality that is still there, especially at the back. Defensively, this might be one of the strongest Celtic sides we've seen in years. Tierney Johnson looks sharp. Vickers is a rock, and our midfield, when it clicks, can dominate possession. That gives us a solid foundation to work from. And when you look at Kayat Almaty, you see a side that's massively overachieving just by being here. They've never played in a group stage of the Champions League. And the only time they've been in a European group stage at all was the Conference League a couple years ago. That says everything about the levels we're talking about. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This tie won't be won just by turning up. Almaty are top of their domestic league right now, clear of Astana, and they've got belief. Their chairman was buzzing after their win over Bratislava. You could see it in his comments. They're dreaming of making history, and when you're in that underdog role, you throw everything at it. So Celtic need to show up next week at Parkhead with the attitude of a team that means business. No coasting, no walking about waiting for something to happen. We need to impose ourselves from the first whistle and put this tie to bed at home. Because let me tell you, if this goes to the second leg in Kazakhstan still hanging in the balance, things get tricky. It's not just about football at that point. It's about travel, fatigue, time zones, unfamiliar conditions, and then you're coming straight back into the Glasgow Derby, which brings its own chaos. That's why Celtic need to do the job early, set the tone in the first leg, score a few, kill their confidence, make the second leg a formality. That's what a proper European side does. That's what we should be doing. The real frustration in all of this, though, is how avoidable the anxiety is. The squad registration deadline has been there in black and white for months. The qualifiers were always part of the plan, and still we're sitting here with gaps in the squad. We've been linked with players left and right, but very little's been done. Today's rumor? Another center back. Not a forward, not a winger, not even a creative midfielder. A center back! And while depth at the back is always welcome, it's not the glaring issue. What we're crying out for is some firepower. Someone who can give us that spark in the final third, who can grab a big goal when it matters. The name that's popped up again is Etienne Kinku, someone we've talked about before. He's been on the radar for a while now, and reports say Celtic are in a strong position to bring him in. Fair enough. He's valued at just over £4 million because he's in the final year of his contract with Le Havre, and there's competition from Besiktas and Anderlecht. But again, it feels like we're focusing on the wrong end of the pitch. Yeah, Simpson Puzzy coming in on loan from City adds some cover, but he'll be gone again next season. So maybe the logic is future-proof in the squad. But right now, we need someone who can make an impact today, not just next year. It's all a bit muddled, really. The board seem to be banking on scraping through this round before they loosen the purse strings. They're acting like qualification is a sure thing, and that kind of arrogance is dangerous. Because if Celtic slip up here, it'll be one of the most embarrassing results in the club's recent history. And make no mistake, heads would roll. Fans would demand answers from every department, not just the recruitment side. The manager, the players, the entire structure of preparation would be under the spotlight. It's not just about losing, it's about how avoidable it would be. That's why I keep coming back to this. Celtic should win. We have the quality, we have the experience, we have the home advantage in the first leg, but we also have no margin for error. The tie is there to be taken, and the sooner we take it, the better for everyone involved. I just hope we don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. Now, I want to circle back for a second, because something's been on my mind since the news dropped last night. Not just the draw, not just the opponent, but the sheer scale of what this week means for Celtic. This is one of those periods in the season where your preparation, your recruitment, your planning, all of it either comes together or completely falls apart. And what's hard to swallow is how avoidable that collapse would be if it happens. That's what makes folks so nervous. It's not fear of the opponent, it's frustration with ourselves. And you feel it in the tone of every conversation you hear from fans right now. It's not just worry, it's exasperation. You hear the same thing over and over again. Why didn't we sort this out weeks ago? Why are we always waiting until we're at the edge of a cliff before we act? Why do we never learn? Because look, nobody's asking the board to throw cash around recklessly. But come on! The team's heading into a crucial qualifier, then flying 7,000 miles across time zones, and then coming home to face our biggest rivals in the league. And we're doing that with no new striker, barely any attacking depth, and midfielders being asked to cover 2 or 3 different roles depending on the day. That's not forward planning. That's playing with fire. But if you listen to some within the club, they'll tell you there's nothing to worry about. That we've got it under control. That we faced harder ties and come through. But here's the thing. Past success doesn't excuse current negligence. And the reality is, we're going into this game thinner than we should be. And it's not just about making it through this round. It's about building a squad that can compete in the Champions League proper. Because if we do qualify, and we will all be buzzing if that happens, the problems don't go away. In fact, they become even more exposed. Because the level steps up massively, and you can't limp through a group stage the way you might sneak past Kayat. Almaty, you'll get found out, and badly. So again, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom here, but I want to be real. The frustrations from supporters aren't just based on impatience. They're based on pattern. We've seen this movie before. Scrape through a qualifier, sign someone late, then act surprised when we get battered by a real European outfit in the group stage. That's the cycle. And it's one that's wearing thin, especially when you consider the resources this club has now. We've never been more financially healthy. The bank balance is strong, the wage bill is under control, and we've got champions. League revenue within touching distance. There's no excuse not to act like a club of our stature. And let me just address something else that's been thrown about a lot lately. The idea that Celtic fans are overreacting. That we're too demanding, too critical, too expectant. Listen, I make no apology for wanting my club to act with ambition. None. We're not here to make up numbers. We're not here to just enjoy the occasion and clap politely when it all goes wrong. We're a Celtic football club. We should be building to compete. And if you can't understand why fans get angry when the board lets that slip, then maybe you don't understand the fabric of the club. This isn't entitlement. This is standard. This is what we expect because we know what this club can be. So yeah, we're heading into this tie with questions still hanging over us. But there's also a quiet confidence in what we do have. Let's talk about that for a minute, because while it's fair to highlight what's missing, it's also important to recognize what's there. Cameron Carter-Vickers, a proper leader at the back. Calm, strong, always reading the game. Tierney Johnson, still a bit raw but fearless and growing into his role. Midfield, McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate, when they're on form, they can dominate any game in this qualifying round. We've seen it. We know what they can do. Even up front. Yes, it's not ideal, but there's talent there. Abada's always a threat with his pace. And while he's still not the finished article, he can stretch defenses. Maida gives you work rate and runs all day, even if his final product isn't always sharp. What we're missing is that killer instinct. The guy who takes a half chance and buries it. The kind of forward you rely on when the margins are thin. But maybe, just maybe, someone steps up in this tie. That's the hope. That's what you cling to as a fan. And look, let's not act like Cat Almaty are coming in here as world beaters. Respect to them, genuinely. They've earned their spot in this round. But when you strip it all back, they're a team punching above their weight. They've got heart, they've got discipline, but they don't have our quality. They're ranked below Hearts in the UEFA coefficients. Their league isn't at the same level. And while they've been winning games, they haven't faced a side with the tempo and physicality Celtic can bring when we're clicking. That's the key, when we're clicking. Because if we're passive, if we're complacent, if we take our foot off the gas, they'll grow into it. But if we go out there with intensity, with purpose, with sharpness, they won't cope. That's why the first leg is so important. We've got to make it count. Celtic Park, under the lights, European football. This is our stage. We've seen what it can do. The crowd will be up for it. The atmosphere will be bouncing. But that only works if the players respond. We need an aggressive start. We need goals. We need to kill their belief early. Make no mistake. They'll come to frustrate us, to waste time, to slow the game down. That's what they'll be drilled to do. But if we score early, if we knock the wind out their sails, their entire game plan crumbles. And from there, you can build. That's the opportunity we've got next week. What happens after that, though? That's what really lingers. Because if we do get through, if we do book our spot in the Champions League group stage, the board have no place to hide. That's the moment to act. That's when the real work begins. Reinforcements need to come in and fast. No more dragging it out. No more we're monitoring the situation. You got the money. You got the appeal. You got the fixture list staring you in the face. Get it done. Because if we go into the group stage with this current squad, I'll be honest, we're setting ourselves up for a hiding. 1 or 2 additions isn't enough. We need 3, maybe 4. At least 1 forward, at least 1 more creative player, and maybe even another midfielder depending on departures. But we'll talk about that if and when the time comes. For now, the focus is squarely on Almaty. No slip-ups, no drama. Just a professional job. Put it to bed at home. Don't let it go down to the wire. Don't put us through another tense European away leg where we're sweating bullets in the final minutes. Just get it done. And then we can turn attention to the derby, which is a monster of a match in its own right. That's not even close to being on the back burner. It's massive, but it all starts here. It all starts next Wednesday night at Parkhead. So the moods are mixed right now. Bit of anxiety, bit of hope, Bit of fire in the belly, but that's what it means to be a Celtic fan in August, eh? Every season feels like it starts with a test, and this one's no different. But I'll say this. Despite all the noise, despite the questions and concerns, I still believe in this team. I still believe we've got enough to get through. And if we don't, well, it'll be a long, long week for everyone involved. At this club, before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. The streets of Glasgow are buzzing with whispers that could shake the very foundations of Scottish football. Rumours have surfaced, swirling through pubs, supporter forums, and late-night talk shows that former Manchester United and Spain goalkeeper David De Gea has put pen to paper with Celtic. While no official announcement has been made by the club, multiple sources close to Parkhead suggest the deal is not only agreed in principle, but already signed, sealed, and awaiting the perfect moment for the grand reveal. The idea of De Gea pulling on the famous green and white hoops has sent shockwaves through a fan base already dreaming of domestic dominance and European glory. Observers note that the timing of this alleged move is suspiciously convenient, coinciding with whispers of Celtic's ambition to reinforce their squad ahead of a crucial Champions League campaign. De Gea's arrival, should it be confirmed, would represent one of the boldest statements of intent in the Scottish Premiership in decades. The 33-year-old, known for his lightning reflexes and uncanny ability to pull off match-defining saves, could instantly transform Celtic's defensive solidity. In a league where fine margins often decide titles, adding a goalkeeper of his caliber might prove to be the game-changing decision that tips the scales. If the murmurs hold true, the implications for the Scottish game are monumental. Never in recent history has a player of such international stature and pedigree graced the Premiership under circumstances that suggest more than just a twilight career payday. De Gea, who spent over a decade in the Premier League honing his craft against the best strikers in the world, would bring an aura of authority rarely seen in Scottish goalmouths. His reported commitment to Celtic is said to have been influenced not only by the club's storied history, but also by a deep desire to experience football in a new, fiercely passionate environment. Insiders claim the negotiations were swift, yet shrouded in secrecy, with key figures from Celtic's board and De Gea's representatives meeting in discreet locations around Glasgow. The thought of him facing down old firm rivals Rangers in the electric cauldron of an Ibrox or Parkhead derby is enough to make the hair stand on end for any supporter. Even seasoned analysts who have seen countless transfer sagas come and go admit this one feels different. There's a tangible weight to the whispers, a sense that the city's football narrative is on the verge of a seismic chapter. Naturally, questions arise about how De Gea's style will mesh with Celtic's current approach under their manager. Known for his preference for ball-playing defenders and quick transitions from the back, the Celtic boss would surely relish having a goalkeeper capable of launching pinpoint counterattacks as well as producing miraculous saves. De Gea's distribution, often criticized in his later Manchester United years, may actually suit the Scottish game, where direct play and physical contests dominate certain fixtures. Supporters are already debating online whether this move is purely about experience and leadership, or if Celtic truly believe they can resurrect De Gea's world-class form of old. The signing could also send a ripple effect through the dressing room, inspiring younger players to raise their standards in training and in matches. Imagine the boost in morale for defenders knowing they have one of the most decorated keepers of the modern era protecting their net. On the commercial side, such a marquee arrival could lift merchandise sales, attract global attention to the club, and even strengthen sponsorship negotiations. The excitement is palpable, but until the official press conference, every pint poured. In Glasgow will come with a debate about whether this dream is becoming reality. There are also rumors surrounding the financial structure of this supposed deal. Some sources close to the negotiations claim De Gea has agreed to a salary significantly lower than what he commanded at Manchester United, suggesting his motivation may be rooted in the thrill of a new challenge rather than chasing one last day. Lucrative contract. Others speculate that performance-based bonuses and Champions League incentives could be built into the agreement, aligning his rewards with the club's ambitions. The financial gamble, if it can even be called that, might prove minimal compared to the potential rewards. In a market where top-tier goalkeepers often fetch enormous transfer fees, Celtic may have secured a masterstroke by acquiring such talent on a free or heavily discounted deal. Detractors argue that his best years are behind him, pointing to lapses in form during his final seasons in England, but his supporters counter with clips of outrageous saves that defy logic. Regardless of where one stands, it is hard to deny the allure of seeing De Gea in Scottish football, especially when the league has been yearning for a marquee signing to reignite international interest. The next few days may well decide whether this is fantasy or fact. Until the Celtic board speaks, all that exists is a whirlwind of speculation, but the volume of the chatter suggests there's more to this than idle gossip. Journalists have been spotted lingering around Lennoxtown, hoping to catch a glimpse of an unfamiliar tall figure in training gear. Social media detectives are tracking private flights and blurry photos of bearded men in hoodies stepping out of black SUVs near Glasgow Airport. Former teammates of De Gea have dropped cryptic hints in interviews, while fan forums dissect every rumor with forensic obsession. The idea of Muralha in Glasgow, a wall in Glasgow, has become a rallying cry among supporters who see in De Gea the potential to fortify Celtic's European dreams and humble their fiercest rivals. If and when the official unveiling comes, it could mark the beginning of one of the most intriguing seasons in modern Scottish football history. For now, the rumor mill spins relentlessly, and every whispered word seems to add weight to the belief that David De Gea is indeed about to close the goal for Celtic and open a thrilling new chapter for the club and its supporters. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.